Well, looky here. You are listening to someone who is bold, authentic, diverse, unpredictable. Baby, I am unapologetically Ramon, and you have entered my zone, the QB zone, baby. Hello, somebody.
And there's no objection.
I love the community. I love young people. So anytime I come across people who are doing amazing things in the community, I just get excited. I just thrive off of hearing about their journey and their story because it's people like this that have paved the way and allowed me to be where I am today and have some of the experiences I've had. Unfortunately, there was a period where I felt like generations after me didn't have good role models or didn't have as many amazing people doing things in the community to enrich them. I think that has changed a lot. I think my opinion about that has changed a lot over the last, I would say, 7 to 10 years. And I've just noticed a lot of just nonprofits and just individual people on their own taking a mission and a passion to better enrich the youth. And so today I have someone who I am so excited to share with you all and have a conversation about. She is back home in my hometown, Brevard County. She is a member. You guys, I talked about it in previous episodes. You guys know I love all of my D9, but you guys, I've made no secret of what my favorite sorority is. So yes, she is a part of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And this is Miss Rolanda Hatcher-Gallop. Rolanda, how are you doing today? Thank you for coming.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely.
appreciate it. Thank you.
I am excited, first, before we get started, to read the resume of this wonderful individual. Rolanda Hatcher-Gallop is an award-winning veteran journalist, media relations specialist, communication instructor, and community organizer specializing in strategic messaging for nonprofit organizations. She currently teaches full-time at the Florida Institute of Technology. Her academic research interests include business and professional communication technologies, scientific and technical communication strategies, diversity and equity in reporting, message and media strategy, and narrative engagement. In April 2020, she deservingly was named the 2020 Student Organization Advisor of the Year for her work as faculty advisor for the school's Black Student Union, a position that she served in since the group's inception in 2016. Hatcher-Gallop also was instrumental in creating something that I'm excited that I've been a part of, Florida Tech's annual African American Reading Program, and in developing the school's first modern African American history course that I can't wait to pick her brain about, that will come about in July, or that came about July 2020 of last year. She is currently on a committee developing a minor degree program that would focus on African American and Africana studies, a first for the university. In addition, she's a journalist. Her career has spanned over 3 decades. She has worked for the local publication back home, Florida Today. And in 2003, she started a successful boutique media relations and freelance writing company that she held for over a decade and focused on educating future communication and professionals. Her work has been featured in Idea Today newspaper, as well as Essence Magazine and Signature Bride. A 2009 recipient of Lee Rivard's 4 Under 40 Award, Hatcher-Gallop is a charter member and former vice president of the Space Coast chapter of the National Congress of Black Women, as well as a charter board member of the Brevard Hispanic Center. She currently resides in Palm Bay and is married to a wonderful individual, J.D. Gallop, for what I just found out is 25 years. That's amazing. And they have 2 beautiful Shih Tzus. Rolanda, I absolutely love this resume. I mean, this biography. Like, I know you've done a lot of amazing things, but my God, you are a wealth of knowledge and the diversity that you have here. I am excited just to hear all about it.
Thank you. Thank you.
As an educator, what drew you to be an educator at the collegiate level? Was this something that you've always wanted to do? Did you kind of just slide into it? How did you become an educator at FIT?
Okay, well, I got to take you back. First off, my mother is an educator. She
Nice.
was first she started in special education as a teacher, an education teacher with our public school system in Augusta, Georgia, Richmond County Public Schools. She moved up the ladder in her department to become the basically the supervisor, the director of special education for the county. And then she moved into going into personnel. She retired, I believe, as the personnel director for all of Richmond County. So that was my foundation. I remember one of my earliest memories is being in her classroom at AC Griggs Elementary School. I couldn't have been no more than about 5 or 6.
Aww.
And I remember I was just going to teach the class. I was sitting there. I was so happy that those students paid and just gave me, 5 minutes really, because they were looking at me like I was crazy. But I was standing at the chalkboard and I was trying to write up a little note. And I was like, okay, class, this is what we're going to do. So it really started there. And my mother, both of my parents, my mother and my father, George and Roberta Hatcher, they instilled in me how important education is. My dad used to always say, no matter what you do in life, education is one thing that no one can ever take from you.
Hello. Yeah.
Once you get that education, once you get that knowledge, it will never be pulled out of you.
Mm-hmm.
So I took that seriously. And basically I went to a fine arts magnet school, John S. Davidson Fine Arts Magnet School. And it was similar to Fame. I don't know if you remember that show.
Absolutely. Loved it. Yep.
So we danced through the halls. We wore leg warmers to school. We did all of that. And we were known in the county as the crazy creatives, right? Just creative people. So I actually had that experience. And it was there that I discovered my love for writing.
Mm.
And at first, I thought I was going to be a singer.
Okay.
I basically was in the vocal department. Really, I focused on vocal lessons at the school. And so I was learning everything from operatic type of singing to really enhancing the notes and voice that I have. And so it wasn't until I took that first creative writing class that I was like, I am enjoying this.
Uh-huh.
And the next thing I know, to me, it became natural for me to write.
Mm.
I was able to just start writing things, just, picking things out of my imagination and putting it on paper. And so I was like, okay, well, this is my future. And I had the privilege, I think I was in the 8th grade. I had gone to Atlanta to, I forgot why I was up there, but somehow I wound up at Greenbrier Mall. And at that time, there was a function going on where the editor-in-chief of Essence magazine, Susan L. Taylor, she was there. And I remember walking up to her, my 8th grade self, thinking I knew everything. And I told her my dream is to take her job. I just knew that's where my future was going to be. Right? And so basically I positioned myself to do things like that. I went to writing camps. I really focused in on my writing. Less about the singing. I still sang in the church choir and, did some singing around the area whenever I was requested.
Right.
But I put more of my energy on writing. And even at that moment, my mom was like, I could see you being a teacher. And I was like, I never want to teach, because if I ever have a student like I was, with the mouth and always got something to say,
it ain't gonna work.
Now, I always said I'd be in jail.
Hello. Right.
So basically, I never thought about education. I never thought about going into it, but I really focused on becoming a writer. And I had the opportunity. I went to school at Clark Atlanta University. I started there in Atlanta.
I didn't know that. Nice.
Yeah. And so that's at my freshman year, the summer of my freshman year, I had the opportunity to work with the Dow Jones Newspaper Fund, which is a fund for minority students who want to get into journalism, who want to learn things about newspapers specifically. And so even though my dreams were to work for a magazine, I said, you know what, this is an entryway for me to do things. We're doing feature writing and all of that stuff.
Right.
So I was able to get a scholarship within my freshman year, after my freshman year, and go back to my hometown and work at the Augusta Chronicle.
Nice.
And from there, basically they threw me in. You know, I was doing a lot of court type of, it was one of those internships, it was paid internships, which I love. But by
Hello.
the same token, they expected me to come in there and be able to write.
That's amazing.
And so I was writing, and I learned, it was totally OJT, on the job training, because I was writing and I had an editor who was just matter of fact about my writing, and he was helping to guide me and shape me. Well, at the end of the internship, they asked me to stay and continue to work there. And I, you know, I was weighing my options, and through the grace of God and all of this stuff, I wound up coming back there. I transferred over to the University of South Carolina in Aiken. And so basically for the next 3 years, I worked full time as, you know, like a clerk / entry level reporter. And that over time, that just became an entry level reporter. But I worked there full time, and I went to school full time. So my mind it never occurred to me. I loved my professors.
Right.
I loved the act of learning. I loved the act of, you know, feeling like I was educated, you know, but it never occurred to me to actually be in a position to pass that type of thing on. I mean, speaking to me was one thing, you know, going to speak somewhere and telling people about journalism, I could do that all day
That's
long.
different, right?
But actually teaching someone, no, I wasn't even on that same playing field. So after I graduated, I did some journalism. I stayed with journalism for a bit, but then I went to PR. I moved to Atlanta and did some public relations. And then after a bit of time, I came back to Augusta, and I went back into journalism because I was going back and forth as to which one was my real passion. But still, you know, it was just writing. And it wasn't until after I got married, after we moved here to Brevard County, we moved here back in 1996, the same year we got married. I had worked at Florida Today, like you said, as a reporter first, and I moved up to assistant editor, deputy metro editor. But even after all of that, it just didn't occur to me to actually go into education.
Right.
After I started my business, you know, Roje Communications, where I was, you know, working with different companies, both newspapers, magazines, also doing freelance work for NASA contractors to do a lot of what they call white papers and some of their PR, media relations, things like that. I actually, back in 2007, I interviewed this wonderful woman by the name of Mrs. Struther, or Professor Struther, as we called her, or Dr. Struther. And Dr. Struther was just, she was just the nicest woman. And she had a program that she had just started at Florida Tech that dealt with basically looking at, you know, the things that you can do in terms of getting your master's at an accelerated pace instead of getting it in 2 years.
Right.
They had a program that they were trying to design to do it in 1 year. And so Dr. Judy Struther, she and I sat there and we had our interview, and she just asked me outright. I think I just mentioned to her, I said, yeah, eventually at some point I want to come back and get my master's degree. But it was at that conversation that she told me, she said, well, you know, we offer this communication master's degree here. And I was like, Florida Tech?
Right.
Like, you mean that I get to take some communication courses at Florida Tech? And she said, yeah. And I said, oh, that's cool. I left that interview not thinking anything more about it. Ramon, I kid you not. That interview was in September. She called me in October and asked me, and I'll tell you, this is how the conversation went. She goes, Rolanda. And I go, yes. And she goes, are you serious about going back to school to get your master's degree? And I'm like, well, at some point, yeah. It still wasn't on my radar right then and there. I was like, company here. I got so much to do.
Right.
She said, well, if you do, then let me know, because I have an assistantship that I'd like to offer you. And it comes with a $5,000 stipend. And I was like, oh, really?
That's a different, yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So the next thing I know, Ramon, come January 2008, I have enrolled in my master's degree program at Florida Tech, at Florida Institute of Technology. And so I'm in the program and I'm enjoying it. I mean, I just did not know how much I would enjoy it. And
Right,
it's
right.
not just the courses, not just the classes, it's the people too, because they have some really cool instructors. And this is before I became a faculty member. Well, come January of 2009, they asked me to teach one of the communication classes. And I was like, me? Teach it? I was like, well, you know, I've done seminars before on journalism. I've done seminars on, you know, writing papers, on
Right.
things you have to do for your resume and all of that. So I was like, okay, sure, I'll give it a shot. Little did I know in teaching that one course that I would fall in love with teaching.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it was one of those things where I got to see students have their aha moments, you know, where they were like, okay, this is starting to click now. Because we're talking about students, a lot of them are engineering majors. A lot of them deal with more with math than with words.
Right.
So being able to show them how not only to put together, you know, words that are persuasive, that communicate a particular thought, that help people to move and you know, do some type of action, they actually were like, whoa, okay, so I see it now. I see the connection between how my communication is able to get people to, you know, take a certain course of action.
Right.
By me providing them with as much information as possible, I help them to make better decisions, right? And so it's something to watch people do that. And in doing that, I just said, you know what, this is really cool. And so then they offered me another opportunity to work as an adjunct faculty member to do that. And so with every single opportunity, I took it. And I just, my love for education, my love for the process of pouring in to someone else, giving them information, you know,
Absolutely.
that they can pour into someone else, you know, carrying on the line. That became a passion. And I was like, where did this come from? It got to the point where at this time, my mother already had her, my mother was a doctor by now, right? She had a doctorate degree. And so she was retired from the school system, but now she was over Christian education at our home church.
Okay.
But not just over that, she became the Christian education director for the state. And to this day, she holds a state directorship for the region.
Nice.
And I think it's the Georgia Missionary Baptist Association. I think that's the name of it.
Uh-huh.
I always get it wrong, so I put it in my head, not my heart.
Uh-huh.
But, at that time, I went back to her after teaching a couple of classes, and I said, "Mom, you were right. This is something I like doing." And you know your mother. Mothers are always good at saying, well, we knew it all along. So she just looked and she said, well, it's about time. And I was like, wow. So I really, and I've been doing it ever since, you know? So I started off an adjunct with Florida Tech. And in 2013, I became a full-time faculty member. So it's still a passion of mine to teach along with my other passions,
Right.
which is to still write, to do storytelling, to be able to write with a purpose, to be able to just basically lift up voices and amplify voices. So I'm still doing all of that, but I love being in the classroom and seeing that aha moment when people are getting it, you know? So I teach now, I teach scientific and technical communication.
Okay.
I teach business communication, helping people to really be able to communicate effectively in the business realm, in industry. And then I also teach editing, because a lot of people, they need the editing skills to be able to say, okay, let me trim this, let me add this, let me change this when they are getting ready to deliver a message. So I really enjoyed it. I hope I didn't take too much time trying to explain all of it.
No. I think it's important to hear this journey and hear the passion, because, you know, where we end up a lot of times is not where we started. You
No.
know, so we never know what his plan for us is. We never know where we're going to end up. And the fact that you just love pouring into people, and that was just your pure motivation and thing that lit this fire in you. I think that's amazing. I think that's why, if you're not emotionally connected to something, I think you probably won't enjoy it. You know, a lot of times I like to say it's not hard work but hard work, and I think that's what writing and communication has definitely been for you.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about communication, what would you say are like 3 of the biggest key factors to effective communication?
Well, first off, there are 3, and I'm glad you put the number 3, because there really are 3 questions that you should always answer. I don't care if you are a talk show host. I don't care if you are writing a letter to start a new business. I don't care what you're doing, what kind of communication platform you're using. 3 questions you should always answer. Who you are. People always will look at you and say, who are you?
Right. Let me take my note.
So you ask, so this is what you have to answer. Who are you? What do you want? And what do you specifically want from me as your audience member? So for instance, if I say, who are you? Then you're telling me, you're introducing yourself. You're giving me some type of connection so that I can understand why you are approaching specifically me. And then you're going to tell me what you want, right? In terms of why are we talking right now? But then you're going to be more specific than that. You're going to tell me why you are talking to me. What do you want specifically from me, right? So let's say if you were seeking a job, then in the resume, you would have your qualifications, your skill, your education, and all that.
Right.
But it's the cover letter that gets you in the door, right? The cover letter is the one that you should really focus on, because that's going to have all 3 of those answers in there. And the answers need to be relatively high. So within the first paragraph, you're going to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Rolanda Hatcher-Gallop, and I am a journalism major at Florida Institute of Technology, and I would like to apply for this internship that you have at your company. Right then and there, you know who I am and what I want. I want the internship. But then I can become more specific. I am writing to you because I want, you know, maybe a reference, or I want to have an interview with you, since you're going to be deciding on who gets the internships.
Right.
What have you. I need to be able to, as your audience, I need to be able to, within, I would say, a 1-minute span, know who you are, what you want, and what you specifically want from me. Those 3 things decide everything else. If you were pitching, say, let's say you approached MTV networks, right, with an idea for a new show. It's the same concept. You've got to tell them who you are, what you want, and then what you specifically want from the person that is sitting in the room with you, or on the phone with you, or reading your email, or what have you.
Right. People
need to be able to place themselves in your particular situation. You give them the context, but then they, in order for you to really get people to buy into it, they have to see themselves there. They have to see this as something that they want, right? So I think that's one of the major tenets of communication. You got books based on this, where, I mean, you even have like Sir Richard Branson from Virgin Airlines and what have you.
Yeah.
He calls it the elevator pitch. It's the same concept.
Okay.
You have only a certain amount of time to convey those 3 answers to people. That's how you keep their interest. First off, you capture their interest, right? You capture their attention, and then you keep their interest, and then you further along and start building on that relationship. So it's about who you are, what you want specifically from that particular audience. If you can convey that, it not only gets you in the door,
Right.
but it may get you a seat at the table.
Hello. I think that's some great nuggets for people to take note of, because like I said, I definitely took my notes on it. And I think that's important, because I think that a lot of us probably lose sight of number 3, and probably don't effectively communicate number 2. So I think that's awesome that, you point out those tips.
Yeah.
When it comes to, and I was a part of Black Student Union at my university, so I was excited about this. How did that all come about? I think it's amazing that as long as FIT has been around, I can't remember where it started, but I know throughout my whole childhood, FIT was there. And so for them to just now get a BSU in 2016, I think that's great. How did that come about? And how did that come about with you being the advisor?
It started with a young lady by the name of Faraha Merritt. She was from Atlanta, Georgia, specifically Decatur. And she came to Florida Tech, her freshman year, I believe, was in the fall of 2015, 2016, something like that. But what happened was, once she got to campus, her thing was, okay, she's a young African-American woman, coming into another environment that she's not used to. And she was on campus. And so she was looking for some way to identify others that would bring, that feeling of home, that feeling of acceptance, that feeling of belonging. Right. And she found that in the general sense with the whole campus in terms of being able to communicate and to really get involved in some of the extracurricular things that they have on campus. However, she still felt like something was missing there. And so she started talking to some other African-American students who were of the same mind. And even when I was there, like when I was a student, like I said, back in 2008, 2009, I graduated in 2010. Even during that time, I saw a need for something, to be on campus,
right?
To help, especially with the Black students, because I think that the African-American student population is, I want to say, it's definitely less than 10%. It's definitely less than 5% of the entire population of 6,000 students. So I would say that, it's not a robust population of students. We have more international students. We have more African students.
Yes.
We have Caribbean students, and it's great for people of color, period. The university is, because we are a diverse university. Mm-hmm. But by the same token, Faraha and several of her friends felt like there needed to be more. There needed to be something there that celebrated African-American culture, because African-American culture is different than Caribbean culture. Mm-hmm. It is different than African culture.
Right.
And unfortunately, some people, especially, people who aren't in those particular groups, they like to lump us all together. And so even in going to functions by these different organizations, because we already have an African Student Association, we have a Caribbean Student Association, we have a Middle Eastern, we have several Middle Eastern student associations and clubs. But even in the midst of all of that, they felt that there needed to be some mechanism, some organism on campus, organization that celebrated what we have here in the United States as African Americans. Because we built, look at our history, since coming over back in the 1600s, we've flourished in so many different ways. Absolutely. We've overcome in so many ways. And we built a culture that is identifiable, not just within our homes, not just within our communities, but it's celebrated across the world. I'm not even going to talk about jazz. I'm not going to talk about hip hop,
So much more.
Through adversity, through everything that our people have gone through, we've been able to not only survive, but thrive. And we've been able to leave our stamp on this world in so many different areas. Even when people try to keep us down, even when people like our culture, but not our people, our color, we still rise, as Maya would say.
Absolutely.
Right? So at the time, they were like, well, what can we do? And they went to our student organization office. And so they're the ones who actually came up with the idea. And then they approached me. Several of them I'd already had in class.
Okay.
And so they knew, because in every class I have, I'm going to bring my culture into
I
it.
know that's right.
You know, that's because people think that we don't fit in as engineers or, you know, astronauts, innovators, you know, professionals. And there's one place where we not only fit in, but we all excel. And it's in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
People think that we're just great athletes. No, we're great at everything.
Hello.
Give us an opportunity and let us show you. So open up the door. As James Brown would say, open up the door and I'll get it myself.
Hello.
So it was like that. And so they just basically came and asked me if I was interested. I told them not only am I interested, but we sat there and we really drew out the framework. We really came up with, you know, our mission statement, our vision statement. We came up with pretty much a 5-year plan, things we want to accomplish. And so it just took off from there.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, when I first found her, and I want to say it was, what is this, 2001? So that's about what, 2018, I want to say, I think it was, where Renisha had asked me, well, voluntold me to be a part of y'all chapter's Black History Month program. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about culture, I walk into that room, and it's a Black History program, and I expected a lot of Black history talk and stuff on the program. But for me to walk into that room and to feel like I'm in the middle of like a museum, because you guys really turned that Civic Center into, it's really like a portable Black history journey, because y'all have some of everything from clothes to paintings, books, all kinds of stuff, on top of the food, of course, but in a diverse program, dance, and it's amazing. It's amazing what your chapter have done and continue to do. And I mean, it's been around for a long time, but I think that was really my first time really experiencing it when I was asked to be a part of the program that year. And you know, I'll never forget that moment, because it was really, I had never really shared my words or my art in that way. That was the first time in front of a big crowd like that. Usually I'll release a book and I may do a few blog stuff or online stuff, but to stand in front of a crowd to share words that I created, I feel like y'all created or started a fire in me, because like I literally said, not only was that the first time, but the way y'all received me and the feedback. And so I want to thank you for that, because it's also a testament to how you pour into people, how that chapter has poured into me, because some of those women I've known since I was kids. You know, I've had my own philanthropy efforts that you guys have supported in the past. And so I just had to bring that up because it's amazing.
Credit goes to Sandra Pelham, right?
Sandra, by the way, the street I was raised on is named after her, by the way, but go ahead.
There you go, Pelham. Yeah. Okay. Well, Sandra Pelham is a member of the Melbourne Palm Bay Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And she is known, like you said, the street's named after her, and it's for a reason. It's because of her community activism. And she is known for putting together programs for, you know, trying to celebrate us and trying to not only celebrate us, but educate us. So she actually brought the idea of a Black Heritage Calendar Fest to the chapter back in 2000. And it was after she does what we call the Power Subdivision Read and Feed program, where she helps children, especially our children who are from maybe you know, needy families, who can't necessarily afford food or what have you during the summer. She helps them out by making sure that they get some food, some either breakfast or lunch during the summer. Well, at one of her meetings, she was talking to a young boy, and so she asked him to read, and he said, "I don't know how to read." Right. And so she picked a book, and she had a volunteer, because she had started like a little reading program as well. And she had a volunteer who started reading the book, and he was like, "Who is this person? I've never heard of him." The book was about Martin Luther King.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so it occurred to Sandra right then and there, these kids aren't, either they're not being taught about their own history, or somehow they're not making that connection.
Right.
And so she set out to do a program where people would actually be able to see that history goes on, Black history goes on 24/7, 365 days a year. Because we've been taught that, February is Black History Month, and
Right. That's all we get.
that's all we get, and that's all well and good.
Uh-huh.
You could say that is our month, but recognize the fact that that month highlights things that are done throughout the year. You know, so she actually brought it back to the chapter to do the calendar fest, and it took off, and it changed in certain ways in that they started putting out tables representing each month and having some type of Black history representation for that month. And like you said, it grew, so that the program wasn't just about, celebrating Black history, but also realizing that you're living Black history and understanding your place in that Black history. So when you came, and I think that was the year that Renisha and I were the coordinator for that year, right?
Yep.
So when you came at the right time, because we were basically doing that. We were celebrating, people who were what we call to be game changers, people who were doing things in the community to help move the community forward. But not only that, we were celebrating those who had come before us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Absolutely.
my thing. That's my thing. We have to celebrate, those people who are out there, fighting on the front lines of justice,
Mm-hmm.
and those who are coming up behind them. Not only the trailblazers, but what I call the torch bearers. Those who, they're passing, the trailblazers are passing on the torch to the next generation.
Absolutely.
So that's what that program has been able to do. We were able to celebrate our 20th anniversary last year before COVID hit. So we were able to have one this year, but I am praying and I'm hoping, as well as my sorors, that we are able to continue on with that particular program, hopefully next year.
Absolutely. With everything that you've done as far as pointing to the community at FIT, I think it's amazing that you created or was a part of the modern, the first African-American history course at the university. That is amazing. I want to hear all about how and why that came about. And I'm sure it was a passion for you, but please tell us about it. I think that's amazing.
No, it wasn't a passion.
Really?
What happened was George Floyd.
Mm.
When George Floyd died after being under Derek Chauvin's knee for 9 minutes, and everybody around the world seeing that, and all of the marches taking place last summer.
Right.
We started having conversations within the Black Student Union. We started having conversations with just Black students all over campus. And that led to the university taking notice of it. And you had Black alumni who were writing in and saying, you know what? Because at the same time that this was happening, at that point, the university had, through, I guess, budgetary issues or what have you, they cut out the football program. And the football program had been a great avenue for a lot of our African-American athletes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we still have the basketball program, but they cut out the football program. So there was just that double hurt that was going on for those who were on campus. Some of the football players weren't able to stay. They were looking for schools that would give them a shot at the NFL if it came to that. Right. So a lot of them transferred, and they left behind, friendships. They left behind people who really would miss them. So we felt it with the BSU. We saw our numbers reduce. So it was dual conversations right there going on. And the university took notice of it, of some of the things that were being said by the Black alumni in regards to what was going on with the George Floyd case. And then out of that, I was talking, it really came with Faraha, as well as another student by the name of Brittany Bailey. And basically they were talking about, there should be something, this is the time, because Faraha had always put it on the roster for the BSU to help spearhead some type of African-American course on campus. And so one thing led to another. We were instrumental in actually developing the curriculum that we proposed to a committee from the school, including Dino Campanita, who was like vice president of an area at school. But we proposed a curriculum for them to follow for an African-American minor, if they wanted to do an African-American minor, or Africana Studies, which is an expanded version of it. And so from that, we came up with the Modern African-American History course. And so that's done in our department, the School of Arts and Communication. I had the blessing, I would call it, to be able to find the instructor. His name is Mr. Donald Harrell, and he had been teaching for many years over at the University of Central Florida. He's in their Africana Studies program. And so he and his wife, Tootie, I think I'm pronouncing that right, I hope so. But he and his wife are, they are ethnologists, they are storytellers, griots. They go around the country talking about, African culture, African American culture, and things of that nature. They play drums, they do folklore.
Oh, I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So in finding him and seeing that he has taught this type of course for many years, he actually came and signed on. And it was just a beautiful thing. He was very excited about the idea of coming over to Melbourne. He had been to Melbourne before, but to be able to teach to students, more about modern African-American history, that's something that he really wanted to engage in. So we had our first course in August. And through that course, we also saw a need for something in this spring. And so this spring, he taught evolution in hip hop.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so in the fall, this coming fall, he's going to teach both of those courses at the end of the fall semester. So it's going to be cool, and we hope to have more. The committee is going to be meeting to determine what the next step is for developing the minor degree program.
Right.
But we want to see more courses added on to it, and just to those of us who want to take the course, that's fine. But it's about educating everyone. It's about making sure people who aren't African Americans, to give them the answers as to why we're marching in the streets.
Right.
Why we all feel it when you have somebody like Ma'Khia Bryant, or some of the more recent shootings and things that they've had. Why should we care? Why are we caring? And it should be where, it educates people and helps them to see that we're all connected. It's not just something that us as African Americans are dealing with. It's something that, that we're all dealing with, because if it's affecting my neighbor, if it's affecting my brother, then it's something that's going to affect me. So we're trying to make sure that in that course that they understand, how things have gone over history. And there is a part of it where they're talking about, history in terms of this is how we got to this point in this country when it comes to race, when it comes to where people are. But it's also delving more into, okay, not only are we dealing with some historical things that are going on in our communities, but and some systemic racist policies and things like that in our communities. But this is what is happening with people. This is how they're feeling. This is why they are feeling the way that they are. So that's what the course is aiming to do.
So, and I'm just asking this for myself. I want to take this evolution hip hop class. Do I need to apply to be a student now?
No, you don't. The course, all of our courses can be taught. All you have to do is just pay for that particular course.
Oh, that's fine.
And you can audit the course.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
So, no, go ahead. You was gonna say something?
No, I was just gonna say it's something where I do believe that, I haven't taken, I want to take it myself, but
Uh-huh.
it's something where I have not met any students yet who
Mm.
left the course without feeling that like they've had multiple aha moments.
Okay.
So, and I'm talking Black, white, Asian, whoever is taking the course, they've told me, they've come back and said, I learned something out of this. I'm taking something out of this, and that's what we're hoping will happen with anyone who takes it.
So one of the ways that you have poured into me has been having me a part of the African American reading program.
Yes.
And I remember when it was first presented to me, I just saw it as an opportunity to share my art, to share my words.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I was nervous, but I walked in there and I was like, oh, first of all, I like that the crowd was diverse.
Mm-hmm.
Saw other races that are supporting it. So for that, I thought it was amazing because, me going to a PWI, I can't remember a time where BSU or Caribbean Student Association did an event and was supported by that other race. At step shows, you would get maybe the Latinos, and we had an amazing relationship with them at FIU. So for me to walk into that event and I saw the different race, I thought that was amazing. Middle Eastern, Caucasian, it was amazing. I love the feedback from it. You've asked me to be back every year since. I hate that 2 years I wasn't able to do it, but between stuff I was going through personally, just wasn't able to make it. And I was glad that I was able to do it this year. Although we had to be resourceful because of COVID and other stuff. It's an amazing, amazing program. Talk about how that came about and the effect that you've seen that event have on the population there.
Oh man. Wow. Okay. So first off, African American Reading just celebrated its 6th year. So it started back in 2015. And the idea came about because there's a, and I don't know the official name of it, but there's a like a teachers union that promotes having some type of read-in during February. And it's for, students so that they can actually, the whole thing is basically to, pick up on the culture, but not only pick up on the culture, but understand more about African American history, as well as to celebrate authors, poets like yourself, and others who are doing things. And it's the National Council of Teachers of English. And so they were the ones who they started having, like I said, a national African American reading. So one of our faculty members, Joy Patterson, she actually brought that idea to me, and we took it to the library because we were like, the Evans Library would be the perfect place to have it. And so between Joy, myself, Nancy Garmer, and Linda Kahn, who is also, both of them are librarians, we've been doing this now, like I said, for 6 years. And it has changed over time. When we first started it, it was just about students, faculty, and maybe some people in the community coming together to, read passages from different books.
Right.
To maybe do a poem or two. But as you said, it has grown. And we've had speakers now. We've had people like, we talked about the massacre that happened with Rosewood, right?
Yes.
We had one of the survivors' relatives actually come and speak. Yeah, she did that back in 2020, last year. Yeah, no, 2019, I'm sorry. But she did that. No, it was 2020. I'm sorry. It was 2020. So she was able to tell us about that and to really bring it home and for us to feel it, not necessarily just talk about it, but to understand what really took place during the Rosewood Massacre. And so we've always had a diverse crowd of people to come to it. And I think that's just indicative of the type of people that are at the university. But it has grown in terms of attention and exposure because so many people look forward to it. We not only have, the speakers, but then we also try to give an authentic dinner, something that is meeting a theme. Like if we were talking about Zora Neale Hurston, then we went through her book, Their Eyes Are Watching God, and actually took some of the food that she talked about in the book and made that food and served it to people. So, just in knowing that people walk away from that feeling like they've had an experience, not just learning, but feeling like they've had an experience. That's what we're going for. And so it's been a really cool ride with us. Even this year, like you said, we did it virtually, and I thank you so much for, even though you weren't there, your presence was felt.
I appreciate it.
When you did your poem. So, being able to bring that to people and to make them, if we're going to open a door, open a dialogue on race in this country, what better way to do it than to show people, hey, this is your neighbor over here. This is what they're experiencing.
Right.
And put it into words for you to understand. This is what this person has done. They've shown you it, So being able to do that part of it has been such a rewarding journey.
Yeah, and I look forward to it continuing. I look forward to attending and being a part of it because I thoroughly enjoyed it. To being there, and once again, just the diversity. When you look at our young people today, what would you say are 3 issues that you feel like we specifically deal with? Like, I'm sure we as a Black culture, well, not we, I'm sure, but we know that as a Black culture, we deal with a lot. What are probably 3 of the issues that you think are specifically hardships or issues for the young people?
Well, in looking at today's generation, looking at the things they have to deal with, first off, we can't talk about anything if we don't talk about gun violence, social justice, all of the things that right now we are trying to fight for and to get, as a people. But young people, they're dealing with this on a different level. Before we dealt with it in terms of, we heard that somebody got beat, or, unfortunately somebody, back in the 50s and the 60s, it wasn't uncommon for somebody to walk up and find somebody swinging from a tree, a loved one doing that. And you dealt with that personal pain within your family or within the community. You never really called out the offenders.
Correct.
Now we're living in a day and age where we are calling them out, where we are saying, enough is enough, but also we're recording the incidents.
Absolutely.
Showing as it happens what's going on. George Floyd, when it came to George Floyd, Derek Chauvin would not be convicted as he is now had it not been for a 14-year-old girl who was brave enough to stand out there, and even though the police were threatening her as she filmed, she continued. Other people joined her eventually and were filming as well. So this generation is different in that they're growing up at a time where they realize that they have value, they have voice. So if you would look at the 3 issues that specifically are affecting them, I would say they want to be heard, they want to be valued, and they want to be involved in the change.
Absolutely.
So I would say those are the big ones. So if you're looking at some of the issues in general that are facing our society, racial injustice, disparities in healthcare, the technology gap that we have, the wealth gap that we have, hunger and food insecurity in some communities, looking at all of that, our young people, even in the BSU, our young people, they have thoughts on these things. They have experiences with these type of situations,
right.
And they want to be recognized. They want their voices to be heard. They want to be valued, and they also want to be involved in the change. They want to see change, but they want to be involved in what changes are made.
Absolutely.
So I would say those are the three issues that, really our young people are looking at right now.
Okay.
They want to hold people accountable.
Yeah. And I think that there's local level, nationally, because even just looking at some of the issues that the young people are going through down here in Miami, in Brevard County, in cities all over the world, just wanting to feel heard, wanting to feel valued. And I think that that's one of the reasons I also feel like a lot of us in droves went out to vote. And look what happened. When we as young people, or even we as people of color, go out in droves, look what we're able to accomplish. But I think even if you go back to Obama's election, young people were a very big part of that. Young people were a very big part.
They were ready for change. At some point, you get tired of the rhetoric. You get tired of the same people saying the same thing, doing the same things, or not doing the things they're supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you say enough, right? And that makes you move. Unfortunately, last year, it was, for George Floyd to die the way that he did, and for us to see that was enough to move a nation, not just this nation, but, you had, in Europe, there were plenty of marches, in other places, there were marches. Right. So that was the catalyst that made us all say enough, We had seen, so how many more people have to be added to that roster of people who have died by police officers, by law enforcement, Just when they announced that Derek Chauvin was found guilty, within 24 hours, you had 6 more African Americans dead.
Correct.
And when you look at what those people were accused of, if you look at the circumstances, you can't help but go, what? Why? That doesn't make sense. Even George Floyd, he died over a questionable $20.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense, And so bringing attention to that, helping people to understand that we're not asking for the police to go away. Some people love to say, well, you need to defund the police. And then they take that and politicize it and feel like that's saying, oh, so basically you're saying that we need to just do away with police officers. No, that is not. Correct. We're asking people to go back to what they're supposed to do, which is to protect and serve all of us, right? All of us. Not just a few of us.
But not just the majority, not just the ones that fit a certain stereotype.
Right. And so also you got to understand that protecting and serve means if you come across somebody who happens to be having a bad day, you got to recognize it's just a bad day or Correct. A bad, no matter what their skin color is, So you don't necessarily have to go up feeling that somebody is already a threat before you even get to the situation or get to talk to them.
Right.
So my thing is that in itself is something that we're dealing with. I mean, young people are dealing with it. They want to be heard in this whole thing. But then in the Black community, we're dealing with it. But this nation is dealing with it. We need to figure out a better way to enforce the laws, but also to serve the citizens in this country, all of the citizens. It does not make sense for somebody to die for a traffic stop.
Right. Broken tail light or whatever.
Any of that. It does not make sense for somebody to, Trayvon Martin, to be stopped as they're walking through their neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Trayvon Martin. Think of the kid in North Carolina. I think it was recently, like last week or the week before, where a young person was just trying to walk. He had just moved to the neighborhood, was trying to walk through the neighborhood, and he got accosted.
Look at Ahmaud Arbery. He was just going for a job.
Just going for a job.
Yeah.
So at some point, people have got to, recognize that this isn't right. And they've got to really forget the words, put the action in, and change the way things are.
And it's a blatant difference because it's clearly targeting one particular race. Because I got sent a video yesterday, and it was a recent video of a Caucasian officer who had stopped a Caucasian male. He is cussing at the cops. He is being obviously extremely aggressive with the cops. And they are just trying all of these different tactics to defuse this individual. Had he been a different color, he'd have been shot the first time he did something or said something.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm following the case now, and you probably know of it. Andrew Brown Jr.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, that's the guy who was killed by sheriff's deputies in I want to say it was in South Carolina. Elizabethtown, I think, is in North Carolina.
Okay.
And that's the case where they said that the guy was driving away. They had gone to serve him with a notice, a court appearance, a court summons. And the next thing you know, he was dead. And so his neighbor, according to the neighbor, she said that he was driving away from them when they started shooting. And the latest information on it that just came out was that he was shot 5 times by deputies, once in the back of the head. That was reported today. So how do we go from trying to serve somebody a court summons to them being dead? He was a father of 10 children. So I don't get it.
Shut up.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it. And my thing is, if we can't keep going like this.
Correct.
So if we're really trying to work for a better community, if we're really trying to work for a better United States of America, then people have got to stop making excuses for this. They've got to stop trying to rationalize it, trying to justify it, trying to, put some sense of, well, maybe if this person hadn't done this, then this wouldn't have happened on it. And they've got to realize that there is a problem. And it's going to take all of us to solve that problem. I hate to see on TV how we watch people in Washington, D.C., our congressmen and women, how we're leaving it in their hands to sign the George Floyd bill.
Yeah, yeah.
But what I don't hear is how people in their communities, they're being told to call their own representatives. They're being told to call their senators and tell them that this is needed.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, we're going to recognize that there's a connection between Washington and, here living wherever you are, and that you helped to elect this person. So go ahead and hold them accountable. Tell them how you're feeling. Tell them, that you want them to, help them to find ways to really have policies where people aren't dying in the street every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm not trying to preach, so I apologize.
No. It's needed. Listen, I'm here for it. It's beneficial. These are the types of conversations we need to have. And growing up in Brevard County, specifically, what was once called Randolph Street, one of my favorite staples in the community was my grandmother sending me down every Sunday morning to go get her newspaper from Evans. And going to Evans with my uncles or my cousins or, friends, getting our little snacks and, our little candies. And that was just a huge staple. I thoroughly love everything about Evans.
Well, come on back, do it now.
Huh?
I said, come on back, you can do it now.
Listen, from your mouth to God's ears, because just as sure as the opportunity arises, I would. But when it was no more, it was like, oh man, that was like a big thing in the community. Yeah. And I remember hearing about it coming back and just different conversations over the years. But when I found it came back. And initially, because I'm here, I heard about it from, social media and, of course, friends and relatives who are still back home. They sent me, newspaper articles, sent me pictures of it. And I remember when I came back, the first time I came back after my grandmother died. Mm-hmm. And I remember going to Evans. And of course, it looks the same. But I feel like the spirit of what it was back then is still there. And it's so many good memories came back. And just that place was such a huge part of my life. You know, just I look forward to every Sunday going down there to get my grandma her newspaper. And she always making sure I brought back her change. Because baby, she knows any change left, oh, I'm finna keep it, you know. Talk about, and I didn't know this. It probably, I feel like it makes me love you so much more. But talk about you being on the board for the organization, the nonprofit that brought that back.
Oh, wow. Well, I sit on both the Evans Center Board, which is the board of directors that helps to pretty much direct Evans Center. But in addition to that, and for those who don't know, Evans Center is basically an economic development initiative that was started in the Powell subdivision neighborhood, which is right there at Northeast Palm Bay, south of South Melbourne area. And so the center itself, we have a public food market, we have a community room, and we also host a Brevard Health Alliance clinic where we have a physician there pretty much every day of the week, 5 days a week, who is there to help people who can't necessarily get to, say, a hospital or what have you. The food market is there to help those who can't get to like Walmart or something like that. So it's right there in the neighborhood. It pretty much, before we were able to have the Evans Center, that was designated a USDA, U.S. Department of Agriculture food desert. And a food desert is where you have an area, a community where people don't have fruits and fresh fruits and vegetables that they could go buy. That it takes them at least, they have to travel at least 3 to 5 miles out of their area
to go get
groceries. So with the market being there, we pretty much help to alleviate that. Plus the market has a fresh deli as well as some hot food.
Baby, that food's so good. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, it really is.
Oh my God.
And it's done by people who live in the neighborhood, who work there.
Yes.
So if you want macaroni and cheese done the right way, if you want some fried fish done the right way, and now they have sheep's head and stuff like that. So
you lying?
No, I'm not.
My granddaddy and my Uncle Philip and I will go fishing so much when I was little, and that was like our favorite fish in my family, whiting and sheephead. I can't even tell you. You finna make me make a quick trip home. I can't tell you last time I had some sheephead.
Oh, well, they got, and the thing is, they don't keep it. It sells out every time it comes in.
I bet it do.
Yeah. Ooh. So they have, and then just the food itself is really good. But then also knowing that they have that community room, which helps people. They have like a senior exercise type of program that goes on there. They have events like checkers, so being a community hub the way it is now.
Absolutely.
It really helps the community, but it also helps to promote that togetherness that we've been talking about during the session, and so I sit on the board of directors for that, but I also sit on the board of directors for Neighbor Up Brevard, which was established as the Brevard Neighborhood Development Coalition. And so Neighbor Up Brevard, their focus is more on the Booker T. Washington neighborhood in North Melbourne.
Right.
Basically, the Booker T. Washington neighborhood is predominantly Black neighborhood as well. But they help a lot of the teens in that area. They help a lot of the elderly by having the Greater Heights apartments and things of that nature. So back when, I want to say it was about 15 years ago, there were a group of people that came together, and their whole point was to get Evans Center back up, or Evans Market back up.
Right.
The market to come back. And the market was demolished at that time because of, after Mr. Evans died, Roosevelt Evans, he ran it for so many years, but after he passed away, it shuffled through a lot of owners before it just was sitting there neglected. Right. And so they had to just tear down the building. But so people came together and they were able to pretty much start a committee that was designed to really help people get back and start thinking about Evans, start thinking about what Evans meant to the people, and saying, okay, let's start raising some money to build Evans. That committee went on, and it was led by Lee Bartell. That committee was able to go to the people with the Brevard Neighborhood Development Coalition and to say, we see what you guys did in the Booker T. Washington area. Why don't you partner with us to help Evans Center to come back? And so the focus is not for Neighbor Up Brevard to be over Evans Center. James Bartell, I was thinking of his daughter, but it's James Bartell who was the actual person who helped to spearhead this. But the purpose wasn't for BNDC to be over Evans, but more or less to help get it off the ground. And so that's what Neighbor Brevard helped to do. BNDC changed their name a couple of years ago to Neighbor Brevard, and I came up with the name Neighbor Brevard. So that was cool when they voted to do that.
I like that, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, let's neighbor up, you know. So after that happened, you know, they worked together in partnership to get the center off the ground, and the center has been going now thriving since 2018. And it is just one of those places where, you know, you can always feel at home when you walk in.
Absolutely. From the moment you walk in.
From the moment you walk in. So we have some, you know, some more plans with them. We have some fundraisers coming up for the center, but we have some plans that will get more in community involvement, health and wellness, job training, things of that nature are going on there. In a couple of weeks, I believe we're going to be a vaccination site.
Nice.
Get vaccinated. Yeah. So we're working with the Brevard County Health Department right now to figure out when we can do that. So it's one of those things that it was where people just had a dream, you know, they had a dream, they prayed about it, they organized, and they were able to make it a reality. And it has benefited so many more people.
Absolutely.
Even our kids, you know, our kids even are the ones who've benefited from that. So it's one of those things. It's just been a blessing to see it just thrive. And like I said, you need to come on back.
Yeah. Yeah.
You come on back, and even if you come for a visit, don't leave without 2 or 3 plates. I'm gonna tell you.
Listen, and when I was there the last time, I had multiple plates. I was going there every day for the breakfast, for the dinner. I was telling my uncles and cousins about it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And we have a chef by the name of Trevon who is in that kitchen. That man knows he could burn.
Yeah.
Just the fried fish alone, you're gonna be just like, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So it's a blessing to see it take off the ground.
Oh yeah, I'm happy for it. Rolanda, what is next? What is something that you have done that you have not done yet that you still want to accomplish?
Oh, books. I can tell you that now, writing books. When I was a kid, I used to win writing contests and things of that nature. So storytelling has always been in my DNA. And I want to continue to do that. I want to write not only fiction, but I also want to write stories, you know, telling how people have overcome certain things. You know, storytelling is a big thing to me. I've done it as a reporter. I've done it as just a freelance writer, but I want to continue that. But I want also, like I said, to write books. I've been published already in a couple of anthologies, and that's pretty much dealing with my freelance writing work. But I want to have something of my own. I used to say I want to be the next Toni Morrison, but I think she was the best Toni Morrison she could be, so I'm gonna be the best Rolanda Hatcher-Gallop I could be.
Amen.
And so that's my next thing, is to get some of my works published.
Well, I hope you actually do it. I hope you're actually gonna have this book coming.
I hope so too. We'll see. But then I'm also working on a website where I would like to curate stories of people overcoming. You know, overcoming, because I'm, like I was telling you, I love being a storyteller. So I love giving those little nuggets about how people faced adversity, faced things that could have broken them as human beings, but instead they found the strength to overcome.
Have mercy.
Yeah. So that's something that's been in the works for many years now. Well, for the last 5 years or so. So I'm going to take this summer to figure out which avenue I want to take next with that.
Amen.
My thing is just, even like with your story, Ramon, just having people hear, of some of the things that you've had to overcome to be who you are, some of the things you've overcome just to get up in the morning.
Hello.
I think that can help so many people because, looking at the pandemic and all the mental health issues that came out from it, people have been depressed. They felt, alone. People have felt like there's nobody there for them in terms of their problems, whatever they may be. I want to help show that we are never alone. First off, we got God, but then in addition to God, he gives us people who are angels who are clothed in flesh.
Absolutely.
Who
Absolutely.
he sends to us to help us in our time of need. So I want to help, uplift people and give them, even if it's just that little lifeline to say, whatever you're going through, just hold on a little longer. Even if you got to hold on by your fingernails, hold on. So
I want to close out by sharing something with you. The last few years have been very rough for me.
Mm-hmm.
And during that period, I've had some of my darkest days. I have lost confidence. It's better now, but I lost confidence. I lost sight of the good things about Ramon. I lost sight of what I bring to the table, things that I'm good at, and just was thinking a lot of negative things about myself. And when you reached out to me and asked me, because I had lost sight of writing, I hadn't written anything, I stopped doing all of that. I mean, I one of the books that I'm releasing next month, by the time this episode airs, it'll be out. I'd written this book a few years ago.
Oh, wow.
But I lost sight. Life, things happened, and I didn't care about it. I lost my passion and joy.
Yeah.
You reached out to me and asked me to be a part of the reading program this year. And typically, I do an original piece specifically for whatever the theme is, whether it's for you all or the Deltas. And when the dates didn't coincide with what I had going on, the devil inside of me was like, this is the perfect way for me to get out of this, because I had lost my passion for writing. I didn't care about this stuff anymore. The stuff that made me happy, I didn't care about it. But then you said, no, we're going to do this virtual since you can't make it. We can do it virtual. You can film yourself. And because I've always had an appreciation for you, something in me said, do it. Something in me said, go ahead and do it. You gave me the theme. And I had to force myself to sit down and go back to a place that had become unfamiliar, but that had always brought me joy. And when I sat down and wrote that piece, it relit something inside of me. And I haven't turned back, because from writing that piece, tapping back into that creative space, then getting the feedback that I got from you, I really want to appreciate, because God used you as a vessel to get me to the next step, to get me to the next place. I probably wouldn't even have had this podcast. I probably wouldn't have done some of the other stuff that I've done, because I was content with letting that stuff go. I was content with being this lost, whatever, broken person. And I never shared that story with you, but I need you to know that you really made a difference in that moment, just by me having to do that piece and having to do it virtual. And now I got to really sit down and write this crap. And something came over me. And I think that to hear how you felt, to hear you compliment me and feed into me, I needed that, because I lost sight of that. And you have done that multiple times about that one piece. And so I thank you for that. I needed you to know that. I needed you to know that because you are not just affecting the students at FIT. You are not just affecting the students that are physically there in Brevard County, but you have something inside of you that you really are affecting everyone you interact with directly or indirectly. And so I just want to thank you.
Thank you. God be the glory. To God be the
Amen.
glory.
Amen.
So thank you, and I'm glad you got that because you helped me as well because you know, sometimes when you are in the thick of trying to plan stuff, sometimes when you're in the thick of just being in motion doing things, you tend to forget yourself. You tend to forget, you know, self-care is very important. And so being able to talk to you, especially when you were texting me and letting me know about the piece, and when I read it, I was like, this is so on point with what's going on in the world today, you know, and being able to share that. So I thank you for that. But I really think it was just God using me, you know, to just continue to motivate you because you have such a gift. And I know that life happens. I know that the devil comes to kill, you know, steal and destroy. But we have to rise above that. You know, we have to be able to deal with what we're dealing with. Go through, you know, if you're going through grief, then you go through it. There's no book to tell you, okay, it's over with. There's no book to tell you, okay, now you move to the next lesson or you move to the next thing. You deal with that. You deal with the process. You go through whatever you're going through. But I think it's during those moments that's when the devil's like, you know what? That's when I'm gonna attack the most. You know, that's when I'm gonna really get in there and I'm gonna make you think, you know, you don't need to do this, you don't need to do that. And it's those moments that you start saying, wait a minute, so why am I being attacked so much right now? Why is it that I'm telling myself that these words don't matter, that my talent doesn't matter, that, you know, I'm nobody or nothing? It's all this stuff that people tell themselves. And it's because that is the greatest hour right there. That's that time when your gift, your talent is needed the most. And the devil says, no, this is when I'm going to fight it. Because if I allow him to come out and say what he has to say, then that's going to take this person that I'm working on. That's going to mess up my plans for this other person that I'm working on. You know?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to try to cap him down. I'm going to try to keep him in place. I'm going to try to diminish him in his own mind so that he doesn't let his light shine. You know, but I'm so glad you found your voice again. I'm so glad you found your passion again. I'm so glad you found that light because it needs to shine. It needs to help people. There are people that you would never meet, never know that you have touched. So you got to keep going, Ramon. Yeah. And if I could play a small part in it, then praise be to God. But like I said, it's all about him. So, you know, I recognize telling. I'm the type of person I tell it to you straight, no chaser.
Absolutely.
So if you weren't, if I wasn't seeing what you had poured out already, well, if I wasn't seeing the fruits of your labor,
thank you,
then I could never have been able to, you know, tell you to keep going because I wouldn't. You know, there's no point. But there's something there. You know, it would be different if you didn't have anything. But there's a spark there, there's a shine there, there's a light there. So you've got to let that keep going and let it develop. See where God takes it. You know, because he's going to use it for everything he needs. All you need to do is just hold on.
And I'm open, and I'm embracing it. I'm embracing it. I'm open to it. Cool. Even when those aspects of the journey may be rough, and I'm like, I'm over it. F this stuff today. I know that it's for a reason, and I refuse to give up because when you look at what he's brought me through, I know we kind of touched on that earlier before we started this. You know, look at what he's brought me through. It's like, okay, you up to something, so let me try to toughen this out.
Yeah, I'm the type of I'm one of those Christians that I see God. I don't see him in this little. You know, the photos that they have of the white Jesus.
Yeah.
I don't see that. No. I see that as the same one who created me in his image. Someone who is going to sit there and tell me, now, you know, I came through with you before. You know, I was there when you were on your knees crying, trying to figure out a way you were going to do this and that. You know, I came right through and I did it. Not only did I do that, but I did it in an amazing way that you didn't even see coming.
Right. So why would I not do it again?
Exactly. So what you gonna sit here and be upset about? You know, I got you, boo. That's how I hear God in my mind.
That's true. That's true.
So those times when I'm feeling doubt, those times when I'm feeling just really down, I make it an effort, a concerted effort, to try to just remind myself, like you were just saying, on what he has brought me through. Remind myself on, the fact that he didn't have to do any of it.
At all.
His son didn't have to die on the cross. I mean, think of it, as a parent, do you want your child to just die for
somebody else?
not only for somebody else, Ramon, but for people who they're not even going to say thank you.
Yeah, oh, mercy.
For people who basically are going to continue to do what they were doing.
Absolutely.
Think about it. So I try to keep in mind and keep in focus, even on my worst days, and I suffer from depression. So I have to go through a routine where I have to tell myself things to get myself out of a depressive moment. So even on my worst days, I try to find that silver lining. I try to find that light.
Absolutely.
And I hold on to that light. And so your voice, the way you're able to knit together words, to create a tapestry for people to see and to hold on to, keep doing that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because sometimes that's all people got. They may remember one passage that you recited. They may remember one verse that they read from you. And they're going to hold on to it through whatever they're going through. They may have to recite it over and over and over again, but they're going to hold on to it.
Right.
So like I said, whatever you're going through right now, whatever you have been through, use that as fuel to continue doing what you're doing now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Rolanda, I thank you for your time. Thank you for doing this interview. It was amazing. I got something from it. I'm sure everybody else will. And it is much, much appreciative. Thank you for everything.
Thank you. And if there's anything more that you need, you know how to reach me and everything
yes, ma'am.
That.
Well, that's it for the zone today. We are officially shutting it down. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And until next time, remember this. In the words of the great Denzel Washington, some people will never like you because your spirit irritates their demons.